Hey, Luthix here, with Destiny 2 beta shots and thoughts about whether or not Destiny 2 will become an esport. And the short answer to that is no. I do not think Destiny 2 will become an esport, and here's why. The first reason is that Destiny 2 will run at 30 FPS on consoles, instead of the 60 FPS that people expected. Now, 60 FPS isn't a requirement to become an esport, but it has become a bit of a golden standard now for multiplayer shooters on console to hit 60. To name a few examples, Titanfall 2, Battlefield 1, Halo 5, and Gears of War all hit 60 FPS. Gears of War 4 does this a bit differently in that it hits 30 FPS in campaign and 60 FPS in multiplayer. The Coalition did a great job of recognizing that PvE and PvP players go into Gears of War 4 expecting different things. PvE players probably prefer to have better graphics, more enemies and bigger set pieces, and may sacrifice a bit of performance to have that, whereas PvP players prefer to have smoother and more responsive gameplay and are willing to sacrifice graphical fidelity to hit that smooth 60 FPS. Now, Bungie made a statement as to why Destiny 2 runs at 30 FPS in an interview with IGN. They stated that even the PS4 Pro couldn't handle the game at 60 and that the CPU was the bottleneck. They said that the amount of AI and physics needed to run the game is what made them stick to 30 FPS. Let's watch.
Why did you make that decision? You're like, we're going to lock it at 4K 30 max on consoles. Is it just like you don't want to push the consoles too hard, or why do you make that choice?
So, I mean, I can wade into this and you can flesh it out. Like the console, like the PS4 Pro is super powerful, but it couldn't run our game at 60. Like the way that, like our games is rich physics simulation with collision of players, networking, etc. And it wouldn't run.
Yeah.
Not
makes sense.
Not enough horsepower there.
But there's tons of GPU power in the PS4 Pro, and that's why we're doing 4K, right? Like, it's on the CPU side. Like, Destiny simulation, we have more AI to shoot, more monsters in an environment with physically simulated vehicles and characters and projectiles. You know, it's part of the Destiny magic, like that. Like 30 seconds of fun of coming around a corner, throwing a grenade, popping a guy in the head, and then you add like 5, 6, 7 other players in a public event. That is incredibly intensive for hardware.
Now obviously PvP in Destiny does not feature any AI or vehicles that we know of, and that the map's a lot smaller than in PvE content, which leads many to believe that Bungie can bump the FPS up for PvP modes, just like how Gears of War 4 did. In my point of view, it does seem like something Bungie is capable of, considering the PC version of Destiny 2 has an uncapped frame rate, so the FPS isn't tied down to the mechanics of the game. But going back to the comparison to Gears of War 4, players will generally play the campaign once and then grind out multiplayer, which means they only have to switch from 30 to 60 FPS once, unless they replay the campaign. However, in Destiny 2, players will constantly switch between PvE and PvP content because of new events, bounties, and DLC, which means that they would be switching between 30 and 60 FPS daily. So I can see why that even if they could bump it up, Bungie would prefer to keep it at 30 FPS for both parts of the game so that the overall experience is more consistent. In my opinion, if they can bring the FPS cap up in PvP, they should leave it as an option. Switching from Halo 5 to the Destiny 2 beta, I could definitely tell that the gameplay was a little bit more rough because of the lower frame rate. Because of this, I'm sure for some people, 30 FPS is enough to drop Destiny 2 in favor of other shooters when looking for the next game to grind out and possibly compete in. Another problem that Bungie will have with trying to maintain consistency between PvE and PvP is point number 2. Weapons balancing. In an interview with PC Gamer, Luke Smith, the game director for Destiny 2, stated that part of the fantasy of Destiny is building a character and taking him or her across all the modes, so that consistency is really important to us. The need to change a weapon and have it affect PvP and PvE will hurt both modes because there can't be changes made with only one half in mind. This will affect weapons balancing in PvP, and it means that we won't see changes made to the game that are beneficial to PvP without it affecting PvE. One example of this is the new weapon system in Destiny 2. In the original Destiny, you had a primary weapon, a power weapon, and then a heavy weapon. This meant you had lots of fun tools to take down enemies with in PvE. But now in Destiny 2, the power and heavy weapon slot merge together, meaning you have to make a choice and can only take one power weapon into the battlefield with you. This change is great for PvP because there are less cross-map snipes and instant deaths from shotguns and rockets, but the PvE players are already seeing a reduction of the fun they've been having because they can't carry two powerful weapons at once. One positive to note though is that in the same interview, Luke Smith mentioned that we have some different tools at our disposal for Destiny 2 because of the way we built the weapons. He went on to explain that when we see across the legendary hand cannons on a representation for a particular hand cannon, then we'll be able to go in and address that hand cannon, not necessarily have to touch every hand cannon in the game when we do it. This will be immensely helpful for weapons balancing, and I hope Bungie leverages these new tools to tone down overpowered weapons and help out others that see underrepresentation in Destiny 2. Speaking of weapons, Bungie already has plans to add more weapons into the game with expansion packs, which illustrates point number 3, Destiny's high barrier for entry. Not only do you have to pay $60 for the base game, you also need to pay an extra $35 for the expansion pass, which is already available for pre-order. Because the expansions contain items such as competitive multiplayer and a wealth of new weapons, armor, and gear, meaning if you want all the maps, modes, and weapons that are available to stay competitive, you'll need to shell that extra $35. Also, judging from Destiny 1, the expansion pass won't include all the expansions that will be added to the game. It's possible there will be more DLC down the line, meaning you'll have to pay even more money. Even after getting all the DLC, you'll still have to grind for the gear that you take into PvP, meaning that you'll have to invest a lot of time to get competitive and even more to stay there. Whereas in other games, you can buy the game and start competing almost straight away if you're skilled enough. The fourth reason, and this is more of an opinion, is that to really kick off a new esport, you need developer support, and Bungie hasn't really been known to support their games being played competitively. Even if there was some huge push by the community to make Destiny 2 an esport, I don't think we'll see Bungie start contributing prize money to tournaments or listening to community feedback to make the game hyper competitive. In fact, one thing that Bungie has done practically kills any chance of Destiny 2 becoming an esport. Which is reason number 5, no private lobbies and no ranked play at the launch of Destiny 2. First off, let's listen to an interview that Bungie's Luke Smith did with Kotaku on their podcast Split Screen.
It's interesting. So does that mean there are no more private matches this time around?
So it means we do not have private matches at launch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another post-launch thing.
The launch of a video game is arguably the most important part of its life cycle, and since there won't be any private matches at launch, there is no way for tournaments to exist at all since you can't even get 2 teams into the same lobby. Players will see this and just drop Destiny 2. Even when private matches does get added into Destiny 2, it will probably be too late to get back the competitive players who have decided to grind out other games. Moving along the podcast, Luke Smith goes on to talk about ranked PvP. Listen to this.
Seems like there are a few that, like, I think people were excited about ranked PvP, and that's not
So
not
yeah,
happening.
we're not doing ranked PvP. We're 7 weeks or 7-8 weeks away.
Okay.
We have an idea of something we might do. I don't want to commit to it here because I'm not sure that it's going to happen.
Sure.
But if we don't get it for September 6th, there will be some way of players showing off their prowess to other people, which is ultimately what a ranking system is.
Sure.
It's that.
Bragging.
Yeah, we're working on something.
To me, it seems like that's a confirmation that there won't be any ranked PvP at all, because he mentions that there will be some way of players showing off their prowess to other people, which suggests that they will be doing something different, like giving the best players in the Crucible emblems or shaders for events like the Iron Banner, which sounds great, but it only shows who is the best. Whereas a ranking system that goes from, for example, bronze to silver to gold to diamond can show where the best and worst players are at. This helps players of all skill levels because then they will be able to find people similar in skill to play with by checking out their rank. Rewarding only the best players doesn't accomplish this, and makes it harder for players to find people to team with if there is no quick way to find out their skill level. Wrapping everything up, considering that Destiny 2 plays at 30 FPS, is having issues of PvP and PvE balance, has weapons and maps that are being locked behind DLC, and will not feature private matches or ranked play at launch, Destiny 2 will not be an esport. But to end on a more positive note, despite all this, I do think that Destiny 2 will have a big community behind it, even players who will discuss about the best ways to tackle the Crucible. But do not expect organizations to start picking up rosters for Destiny 2. Thanks for watching, Colbark out.
Keep the pressure on. Zone B locked. What can stop you when you fight together? Nothing. Double down. One after another. 3 opponents down. Fantastic work. Victory is all I ask. Good.